So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. And for a crime book with multiple different perspectives, it was surprisingly easy and simple to read. Hi, my name is Terry Westwell and welcome back to Panic at the Book Club. This week we're discussing The Doll's House by M.J. Arlidge. If you'd like to take part in this online book club, you can find out more information on how via the channel's intro video. We list the next 4 books down below and on TikTok along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. We also accept your book feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send in a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you could just send a direct message on Instagram. A young woman wakes in a cold, dark cellar with no idea how she got there or who her kidnapper is, and so begins her terrible nightmare. Nearby, the body of another young woman is discovered buried on a remote beach. But the dead girl was never reported missing. Her estranged family have been receiving texts from her over the years, so someone's keeping her alive from beyond the grave. For D.I. Helen Grace, it's chilling evidence she's searching for a monster, not only twisted and clever, but a predator who's killed before. Now, as she struggles to understand the killer's motivations, she begins her desperate race against time. Just your friendly spoiler alert that if you haven't read this book yet, I'd suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there'll probably be spoilers. The chapters in this book were all really surprisingly short, being under 5 minutes, so perfect for people who only get short bursts of time to read, so a chapter or 2 before bed, or even on a commute to work. I am definitely someone who prefers to read from one perspective, or at least a very limited number of perspectives. So because of the amount of people in this book, I don't feel like I really connected with any of the characters. But I will say that the shorter chapters did help in following what the hell was actually going on. I find that when I read something with so many different perspectives, it can be tricky to navigate and so easy to end up getting lost. So for a book with so many different characters and back and forth, it was surprisingly easy to read. Despite the book being the 3rd in a series, you really don't need to read the previous 2 to enjoy it. There are very minimal references to what probably happened in the previous 2 books, and it was very much focused on the current case. There have been so many times in the past where I've been recommended books and told that I didn't need to read the previous books in the series, only to feel like I've missed something when I haven't. So it was nice that this book genuinely did feel like it could have been a standalone. That being said, I probably will read the previous 2 books just to see if I liked it as much. You know, for someone who doesn't usually like reading books from multiple different characters, I did really enjoy reading this from the detective's view, but also the victim and the killers as well. I think it was a really interesting perspective that made for a very compelling read. And it didn't actually give that much away either. I was still very much discovering things as Helen was unraveling the case, even though I could see what it was that Ruby was going through and who the psycho behind it all was. And with each new piece of information we got, the worse this guy was. He clearly had some mental health problems, but it was fascinating to see the switch between how he felt and how he treated the girls when he thought they were Summer versus after he realised that they weren't. The moment that he uses Ruby's real name for the first time was actually pretty chilling. Despite everything, that was the moment you knew she was fucked. He was just going to abandon her and leave her in there just like he'd done with all of the rest. I also really liked that Ruby wasn't just some damsel in distress. She was clever and she fought hard. Befriending the guy so that she could ask him for some makeup, all in order to get her hands on some tweezers she could use as a tool to undo the screws on the bed, was really smart. MJ Arlidge didn't like Ruby to be some harmful, stereotypical, screaming damsel in distress. Instead, she wrote her as a real person, which doesn't sound like such a big deal, but people do still keep messing that up. Like, she was obviously still going through a horrible time, but that was reflected in a way that just didn't feel comically over the top. When we were reaching towards the end of the book, I was a little concerned that I was going to be disappointed by the ending. It just felt like the ending wasn't really going anywhere when all of a sudden someone came along and cracked the case wide open. And from there, I thought it was going to be a pretty swift ending. And for the most part, that is what happened. But that being said, I did still enjoy the ending. Setting the fire and having Helen actually have to go in and rescue Ruby did add to the ending, making it feel less abrupt. However, a part of me can't help but feel that it would have been a more impactful ending had she done that only to lose Ruby anyway. Personally, I think that could have been a more interesting and shocking ending to the book, but that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the original ending. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. And for a crime book with multiple different perspectives, it was surprisingly easy and simple to read. I really enjoyed reading from all of those different perspectives, from the detective, the victim, and the killer. I think they all had such interesting stories to tell, and reading what was going through the mind of the murderer was really disturbing yet fascinating. I really did enjoy this book, but I couldn't bring myself to care about all of the office drama that was going on with Helen and all of the others. Like, perhaps I would have felt different had I read the previous two books. Either way, I was grateful that it was kept to a minimum and that the chapters were short. Being such an easy narrative to follow with such short chapters really does mean that this is an ideal book for those who don't often get a lot of time to just sit and read. It's not a super long book to begin with, so those who commute to work will probably find that they can still read a few chapters. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we'll be discussing If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. So don't forget to get your comments and thoughts in by Monday the 19th of February at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok or Instagram. The following week we'll be discussing Alice by Christina Henry, but don't forget, if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below and on TikTok, along with the discussion dates. That means you can choose the genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It is always appreciated, and I will see you all next week. Bye.